And it should be now recording. So welcome everyone to another session of the MS Excel Toronto Meetup group. We are doing our session a little bit earlier today because Danuta Pezda is presenting from Poland. So it's a little bit later than there than here. In Toronto, it's noon, and there 6 in the afternoon. I will present you in just a minute. Before that, let's go just through a couple of announcements. And, this is Teams. You can participate with your comments, with your reactions. There's the chat. You are free to and welcome to leave your questions and your comments in the chat. Feel free to do that. And we will answer we'll ask your questions when it's a good time to stop the presenter to ask questions. And if you have any trouble with the chat or anything, just try leaving the meeting and come back through the same link. It usually works. And as I was saying, the video will be posted on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. So be mindful of that. And by participating in this meeting live, you are consenting us to share any of your participation, either written or voice, video. That may happen. It can be included in our recording. Our next meetup will be on June 7th. We will have Jordan Goldmeyer, who is an MVP, and he will be talking about visualizations in Excel, creating awesome data visualizations in Excel. It sounds promising, and I advise you to register before you forget and to put a reminder in your calendar, so don't miss that. Then we will have another presentation in July. We are still working on the topic, and August we will do a break for the summer. Our sponsors, which is my company, Solving Excel Consulting, and we have a couple of things going on besides building custom solutions for companies. As an Excel consultant, I also provide training. This training is an online training, pre-recorded, but also includes some live sessions, but has plenty of pre-recorded training available with a big focus on Power Query. But not only Power Query, it also talks about many other features in Excel that I usually combine in my projects to automate reporting procedures from the beginning to the end. Let's see there's a little bit of sound coming on there. Can you please mute all, Grania? And then let's see if am I talking still? Is my okay, thank you, because it was a lot of noise in the background. Thank you. So I was saying, if you are interested in learning how to automate your Excel reporting procedures, feel free to check this training. At the moment, we have 20% going on, discount, 20% off going on until June 4th. This coupon was created for a podcast audience that I just participated as a guest this past week. So feel free to check that. There's also the possibility to check free modules. So you can always do that. And then if you think it's worth, you can register. So you will get this file later, but feel free to take a screenshot and with a QR code, and then you can go from there if you want to check the information. And if you are one of those procrastinators who don't trust your resilience to go through a recorded training, and you want something more immediate, you want a live training, I also got you covered on that. Let's see here. I'm also presenting a live training about Power Query. It will be about 12 hours, 1 week in 4 blocks. So in 1 week, June 12th to June 16th, in the middle of the week, we take a rest, and we have 4 sessions in general. And I will teach you the fundamentals of Power Query that will allow you to start using Power Query with confidence and start making a difference in your company, in your work, automating data importation, data cleaning into Excel. So if you prefer something like this, feel free to check this option as well. This training has limited spots, so register soon if you are interested. Okay, other events. Faraz Shaikh always posts this every month on LinkedIn. He collects information about several of the amazing meetup groups in the world, about Excel and Power BI and Power Platform in general. We still have 2 more sessions that we can attend this month, so feel free to check that information as well and connect with Faraz on LinkedIn. Reactor Toronto, Microsoft Reactor Toronto is a program by Microsoft that exists in different cities around the world, including Toronto, and their purpose is to facilitate community sharing, connection and sharing knowledge around Microsoft's technology. They have sessions going on all the time. Feel free to check their meetup group if you think it would be interesting for you. And there's plenty of other content, free content out there. We have on my YouTube channel, for example, we have Excel books. We have the Meetup Excel, the Meetup YouTube channel with all these sessions recorded. You can go back to them whenever you need. Grania has been doing a great job for the past years, putting together the timestamps for the different topics, the different chapters in a session. So it's always easier, it makes it easier to go back to a session where you remember you heard something and you want to revisit that topic. So feel free to subscribe if you are interested, but you will get the link in your email soon, okay? And Solving Excel is my company for consulting and training, and we are sponsoring these sessions. And that's it. Thank you, Danuta, for being with us today. Danuta Pezda is the head of development at Someka. It's a company in Turkey. They sell Excel templates for all kinds of things. And Danuta is developing those Excel templates. So she has a lot of experience about the topic that she's sharing with us today. You have Danuta's social media links there. So feel free to connect with her. And yeah, that's it. I'm not going to take you longer. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you, Danuta, for joining us. And the stage is yours. Please let us know what you have been up to and what you have to teach us today.
Okay, so let me maybe first share my screen as well.
Sure.
Okay, now I'm not sure if I'm sharing the screen as we tried before or just
there, yeah, it's good. We can
but
see.
In the worst case, I will be resharing it again.
It's good. It's good.
Okay, great.
It's working.
So let me just start my presentation actually, and all of the examples that I will be showing today is about how to make an Excel templates, which actually is going to be a little bit different approach than if you are normally, let's say, learning new awesome functions in Excel right now and doing. You have to have completely, maybe not completely, but a different approach. So I will try to share some kind of tips and some kind of tricks of how to do that. Okay, so let's start from here. Okay, so as you said, I'm actually working in Someka for, I think it's already like 3 years. I'm working as a head of development. Before I was only doing the templates. Now I'm also a little bit organizing the job between guys that are also developing the templates. And before the Someka, I was also working for IBM in Poland. I was working more with some kind of VBA automations. So it was not really related to templates themselves, but also for some kind of business solutions. And yes, like I said already, right now it's really nice. We are learning a lot of stuff, even like from year to year, we are getting some kind of new information about new amazing functions in Excel, some kind of queries like you are even having, right? And lots of new stuff is coming up. But unfortunately for the templates, we need to a little bit slow down with the new things. And I will be explaining a little bit more why in the later near future. Besides, by the way, Excel, we are also creating some Google Sheets templates, which are actually having this advantage on Excel that we don't need to bother with the compatibility issues. So that's actually the maybe I would say Excel is an amazing application, and it has like really a lot of new stuff to offer, and also the speed, the way it works, it's really amazing comparing to Google Sheets. But on the other hand, for example, in Google Sheets, we have this nice thing that if we create something new, it will always work for everyone, right? If you even work, I don't know, on the Linux, you can open a browser and Google Sheet will still work for you, right? So
How far back? Sorry to interrupt you. How far back do you go? Do you what's the earliest Excel version that Someka considers in terms of compatibility?
So actually, we are trying to make it compatible with 2010 plus Mac users. With Mac users, it's a little bit hard because we are, for example, I have a Mac computer, so I'm checking if it's all working, or someone else is checking. We are making some small tests, but it's really hard to test in the back, let's say in the how would it work for some older versions for the Excel for Mac. So this is a little bit tricky. But yes, we are trying. In some cases, it's even possible to go like 2007, and it's like also possible. It all depends. But yeah, 2010 is our goal, actually.
And do you consider Excel for the web as well, or not really, not yet?
Excel for what? Sorry?
For the web, Excel Online.
The thing is like that. If there are some small differences, right? First of all, if we are not using the VBA, most of them can be used actually in that case just on the web. There are a few functions which actually are not working properly. Even there are some kind of like a differences, and you know, we are trying to check that kind of stuff, but most of the people actually, I would say most of the customers, they don't understand. It's maybe not nice to say, but they don't understand the difference between opening the Excel file from Google Drive or OneDrive from in Microsoft. And the functions, like if you're just importing the file from, you know, like Excel file to Google Sheets, it just goes bad most of the time.
Yeah.
So this is also usually if some customer wants to use it on web, we are making some kind of checks with them if they have some kind of problems. Of course, like I said, if it's VBA, it's actually impossible. I'm assuming I didn't test it because we are making templates, and nowadays there's a new feature for the scripting, right, in the Excel. I'm assuming it's gonna be possible actually to use scripts for the web Excel, but on the other hand, it will be the drawback for us because still we want to have the older versions compatible. So it's unfortunately not for us.
There's not a 100% winning solution situation there. Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. So first of all, I want to say maybe like some basic stuff, how we are actually approaching to build a template, besides the, of course, compatibility stuff. What we are doing, we are making some kind of keyword study, we are checking the market, right? We are searching if what are the our competitors that have done already. We are checking, let's say, Google Graphics is an amazing source of information, how people are using some specific, let's say, subject, like how they want it to be solved, right? So we are making quite a lot of research on that. Also, for example, very useful like source of knowledge before creating the template is watching some YouTube videos where some of the solutions are already prepared, and you can see, for example, do you think it works properly, or do you think you can make it better? Or and I'm not saying about the formula or anything. I'm saying the way it looks, the way it's understandable or not, if it's actually useful, and so on and so on. So it's kind of like I would say this first slide is half of the job, maybe not half, but I would say the 30% of the job of creating the template. Because, for example, for us, I don't want to go into details, but of course, for us also, there's a differences like what kind of template we can create that actually it has a chance to reach some audience, right? All of the CEO and so on. This I will not, SEO, sorry, I will not go into those details like a marketing stuff. But from like more technical point of view, yes, this is what is really important. And after we have like created some kind of like a mind map of the solution, that not even solution, but the general idea how the template is supposed to look like, or let's say what it's supposed to contain. If we have, let's say, a very complex, we can organize some kind of brainstorm between other guys and collect some more additional ideas and so on and so on. When we have all of the collected stuffs, we are actually trying to make some kind of logical flow. And the logical flow means I'm opening, for example, even PowerPoint would be fine, or a paper, but usually I think me and most of the developers, we are just opening Excel and creating few of the sheets with some specific names, with some how the information will go from some input to outputs and so on. And in that stage, actually, we are trying to put more information than necessary. And in this kind of like broad perspective, looking at the template, we are thinking, okay, this will be too complex for the user if he just opens the template to even use it. We will lose the interest of the customer. So there's always some kind of balance between what we are including in the template and what actually in the end, how it looks like. And like it's written in here, this is very important. Customers usually don't like to read the yellow notes, which we of course need to write. We are creating the product descriptions, we are creating videos, right? But the point is, the customer, when he or she's opening the file, they want to just see it and be able to like just use it, right? They want to understand where is the input, where are the outputs, what am I supposed to do? Even if some basic stuffs like a drop downs, we are usually adding some kind of arrows just to show, like indicate, oh, here is a drop down, and so on and so on. So those are very important, like a small things, but really important when actually creating the template. Okay, and those are like I said, this is like a 30% of the task itself, I would say. The rest is the best practices, the formulas, the structure, and so on. And since I'm more like on the development itself, I'm more interested in, I guess also the audience in here is more into Excel itself. So it's kind of like, I think it's going to be better if I just show some examples and so on, not just discuss about approach. Of course, in the examples, there will be also approach. So first of all, what I have here. First of all, even before, I have here a lot about VBA and Mac. But first of all, what we have as Someka, and like, I guess if anyone starts to create any template, it's good to have some kind of form, like starting form. It's not about the structure. I'm not saying about the flow of the template, but some kind of form. Okay, we always will have the header like that. Always something will look like that, and always like that. So actually, I have, I think, some, if I can show. I will open it. I was planning to open it a bit later, but I can also show, so at least there is no, can you see my Excel file, or I have shared only this presentation? Okay, perfect. So for example, when I'm opening, I'm starting with something like that. I'm just creating a copy. I have some terms of use. I have dashboard. Out of that, I'm creating some copy of the new sheets, and I'm inputting here all of the data. Of course, it can be modified because sometimes we have a huge table that is input, right? So I don't have like a footer like that, and so on and so on. But this is some kind of like a nice form that shows me what is important, how it's supposed to, what I cannot change, what I can change, and so on. In which kind of, like, what kind of visual perspective I should stay. Okay. So that's the first thing that when we already start on in the Excel, we are starting from. The next thing from the best practices, I would say we are in general trying to avoid VBA. And like I said already, not mentioning scripts, the new ones, right? The reason actually is very, very simple. First of all, yes, it doesn't work in the cloud. It doesn't work on the browser. As a templates, we want to, let's say, reach many customers, as many as possible, and plenty of companies which are, for example, downloading some files from the internet. They are just blocking the macros, right? So it's additional, let's say, drawback. Of course, it's when we see the reason for this, we are using VBA. It's not like we are not. We have plenty of VBA templates. But we are trying our best to solve the solution without the VBA if possible. And of course, the issue is, another thing is about Mac. There is plenty of, I mean, there was already, like, I think 2-3 weeks ago, there was a Mac presentation before, right? The differences and so on. So there are some kind of functions, especially in the VBA functions, that are really not working or not existing, or they are related to Windows Core. And this is what I actually wanted to show as a sleep function. For example, we have, I hope it will open easily. If not, I will open it like that. 1 second. I think I have a little bit too many examples, and I hope I can manage with timing, to be honest. Okay, so this is like a super basic template. It's like a toy more than a template, you know? It's just drawing some kind of random numbers and showing like whatever you want to draw. There will be some different numbers. And in Windows, I can use the sleep function, which comes from like a core of the system, Windows system. So, for example, if I delete, uncheck the show visualization, it will just do something like that. So in case of Mac, the sleep does not exist, and all of this kind of like a toy part of this template is just disappearing. Of course, in this case, it's just a silly example, but the same is, for example, with the print. We have.
Can I ask something, Danuta?
Yes.
What is the sleep function? Is it a VBA function, or is it an actual function for the grid? I never heard of that. It's a VBA function?
This is like a kernel, which means it is like a Windows function. It's directly coming from the Windows core. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is just giving me some kind of sleep in milliseconds. I'm saying, okay, sleep for 2 milliseconds, or sorry, like 100 milliseconds, right? And then redraw. Because what I'm actually doing in here when I'm doing something like that, it's just coloring randomly all of the cells and then recoloring them again after 1 second, half a second, yeah. Right? So it's just doing a loop just for like visual thing. Like I say, in this case, it's just a toy, so there is no any issue. But for example, there are some functions which are just working a little bit differently, and this is the main issue. For example, the print, like save as PDF normally it would be. It will just not work because it's just not existing. So let me just go in here. Exactly. So in that case, I just wanted to show it because it's a very simple thing. We are just giving like a message box to the users in our templates, like please go to file, save as PDF, and so on and so on. And this is like a very simple solution. You just need to use like a hashtags with the if Mac. It's just directly checking. If it's a Mac system, it's just doing something. If it's not, just I'm calling some print to PDF function, which I have written elsewhere, right? So there are some kind of stuff like that, and you really need to be aware of this. It really takes testing and checking some kind of knowledge. That's why we are also trying to avoid some very complex stuffs. Our VBA is also usually we are trying to make it as clean and simple as possible as well, because also for any kind of testing, and when we are getting from the customers some problems, it's way easier to find the issue in the end. Okay. ActiveXs, of course, they are really always a problematic in Mac, or they are not existing, or they're just not working properly. It's really a pain, I would say. So we are completely not even considering using ActiveX elements. However, we are, I wanted to, I'm not sure if it's here. Yes, 1 second. I'm so sorry. What I wanted to say, I will share a little bit later about the different way. For example, we have also, besides the ActiveX, we can use the forms, and forms are actually working in Mac. I just wanted to say this because I remember I watched this presentation this few weeks ago on your channel, and there was said that it's impossible to create the forms, which is actually not true. It's possible, they just look not really nice and so on, but let's come back to it a little bit later. Okay, so I just wanted to show, maybe I will just open like this, it's gonna be maybe faster. Example 2 and example 3. Just how we can use just basic conditional formatting and the formulas without actually using VBA. So this is like a very basic stuff, right? We have some kind of things and so on. And this is super basic conditional formatting based on whatever, like some kind of settings I am putting here. If I'm gonna have some different assignment category, I will just make some kind of like a short for this, and I will use it in here, right? So if I do whatever, and as new, and I will choose it in here. Oh, nice. I think I have been playing with this a little bit. I need to check it. Let me just do this in here and I'm so sorry. This will not make any difference right now for me since it stopped working, but yeah, right now I have which is not working. Oh, that's why it's not working. Something is wrong with my dropdown. I think I broke it when I was preparing. I don't want to go, to be honest, through it right now because it's very simple, but there is a much more complex stuff that I actually wanted to show, which is a little bit different, and I think it can be really, like, I would say like that, in VBA you can really make a nicely create shapes, like make the connections and so on and so on, but if you want to use just formulas and some kind of conditional formatting, you can really make a lot of stuff. So for example, if I'm changing in here what I want to actually see in each of this stuff, and I will have, let's say, a lot of information, ID, title, roles assigned, and so on. I think it's just because of that was not working. I had a calculation put to okay, so it just directly changing. The formulas are in here. The formatting is changing. I can, for example, say, I want you to highlight me someone, for example. And I see, okay, this person is in here and here, right? Or I want all, but just row assigned approval, right? So I know those 3 people, right? They have the row assigned approval. And all of this can be done directly just with the formatting. Let me just do right now. This was O and now N, because obviously it was the formatting, the calculations turned off to the manual. So right now, if I put N, it will just color this directly as it is in here, right? So I'm not saying this looks the most amazing, but this is really possible to create a lot of stuff like that just with the basic formulas, just with the conditional formatting. So, and that's why we are trying, if we can.
Can you show an example of those conditional formulas?
Yes, of course, if I remember the passwords. One second. Yes, one moment. I just need to.
So you have the rules already created for all those colors, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise they would not be created automatically. You need to have the rules already prepared, and then some kind of condition to say if there's a letter here, then use this rule
actually,
or something.
you can see the formulas are also, they are not very complex because I have lots of the calculation just in the calculation sheet, and the formula. Sorry, not the formulas. The
Rules, conditional formatting.
The conditional formatting. It's also not that much, you know. Even if I select, I think it's everything should be in here. But just to make sure that I'm not skipping any. Yes, that's more or less amount of conditional formatting. Of course, this is important to be able to create conditional formattings, which are actually, they look like that. They're not super complex. Of course, I'm making some kind of comparisons to the calculations and so on and so on. I always have to make sure that I'm in the correct row. We need to take some kind of like precautions to, for example, if the user will try to damage the file. It's not always possible to really protect from all of the changes.
Their usage, yeah.
But we are trying as much as possible. We are using a lot of like index match formulas and so on, just not to just copy directly from some specific cell, because otherwise if the user will just insert some row or a column, it might just go wrong, and very simple to break in that case. But yeah, about the conditional formattings, I just wanted to add one thing. This is important. For example, if we are creating some kind of conditional formatting, we need to be able to stay within some limit of the conditional formatting, because the more conditional formatting, the slower it will work. And for example, normally this file will work also much faster than it does when I'm showing it actually right now. But because I'm presenting, it always slows down Excel. So it may also look a little bit slower than it's like actually is. But and in here I can also show, but here is actually much simpler, very like direct, I would say, conditional formatting. Just if I'm meeting some kind of specific settings from specific cell, because yeah. Plus, I have some kind of additional stuff. So for example, if I don't have here anything, I just want this to be white. I don't want any borders. I don't want anything, right? So those are some kind of like visual touches. It also depends. Sometimes we are leaving some kind of, let's say, dotted lines. So it's kind of indicating for the user that there's some space for you to fill up. However, in here, you are filling up here the, let's say, new person. So I'm not sure, but I think it's in here. Yeah, new person. If I put also here the shortcut, it will be also in here, and so on and so on. So in here, like I said, I can change whatever I want. All of this stuff is coming just from the calculation. Calculation is just based on some basic filters stuff. So yeah, that's how it looks. I can show another one, but I'm not sure. I mean, like, this is a little bit different. This is our like kind of CRM where we have, for example, Kanban, which is also set with the formulas with some kind of conditional formatting based on, for example, some importance that we are setting to the specific task, right? So, for example, if I go to, let's say, cell application, if I change this, I think it's in here. If I change the importance to, let's say, low, I go to my Kanban, wherever it is, it should be green, and it is. So it's automatically updating and so on. For example, there is one more thing. When we are using pivots, the slicers are coming automatically with 2010 Excel. However, if we are using slicers for the tables, they're let's say, one step further. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So there are also some kind of, that's why I'm saying, like, we also always give the full information under each product description, if it's compatible with this and that, if it's compatible with Mac or which Windows version. So this is kind of important also detail to mention. Okay. Another thing, let me go back to the examples. What I've been saying in here, yeah, like I was saying already, this is what I wanted to show as well. This is very quick example, but it's kind of thing that many people is not thinking to actually. Oh, sorry. That there are some kind of very simple examples, very simple changes we can do, and the compatibility will change. So if I have a drop down in here, right, and my drop down is set with the data validation like that, it's with the basic offset formula. My compatibility, actually, it's going to be, sorry. I guess it doesn't like me today. Do I still have? No, it's automatic. So actually it should not show any, it should show issues with the compatibility, which is weird, to be honest, why it's not showing normally. And I can give my hand for this, really. If you have the data validation made like this, it will be compatible with 2010 and further. But if I, let's say, take this out and I say copy, and I will create some formula, new, right? List, let's call it just list, and I will just make it like that. And if I just change this to list, which should just show it right now, but normally this is causing the compatibility with 2007. I really can assure you, because we had already a few times some customers which were saying like everything looks nice, but the drop downs doesn't work. And after like some conversation, we figured out that the person was using 2007 Excel, and it was just like just the super simple solution. Just take your formulas and just put them as a names in the name manager. So that was the actually thing that should work. I really don't know why I didn't, but believe me, if you will try to do it by yourself in the Excel, you will see that it will show you the compatibility issue with 2007. So that's the thing. Another thing that actually I should mention it maybe even before when I was saying about Mac. We are using quite often offset formulas when we are creating charts. And we are saying, okay, I'm not sure if it was also in the same example, because I remember there was a chart. Yes. Yes. So for example, in here, I have in the name manager, I have this fruit list and how many, right? And it's also just with the basic offset. I'm not, this is super basic. I'm not assuming there will be like empty spaces, right? It's just, I'm just counting number of, and that's all. So I'm not sure if I made it dynamic already or not. New and 6, right? Yes. So I have here, if I'm checking into the select data, if I go, I'm just using how many, right? This is just my function, that not the function, the name range that I have defined, right? So based on this, it's actually changing. And now the issue is like that. If I remove here, depending on the chart, sometimes I will not get this error. Sometimes I will get, but okay. If I right now want to put, I can put in Windows, I can put if error. If I put here if error, and it will have nothing, like if error put 0, if error put 0. Windows should not give me any error if I have no informations. But Mac will always give the same pop-up like you saw just a moment ago. So because of that, we are not using if errors in such cases. I'm always doing something like that. I'm adding here max from 1 and count. So in that case, and the same in the other one, even if there is no data, it will at least have some kind of input of like a one size array kinda, right? So right now, if I just remove it, okay, it will be just empty, but there will be no issues with the formulas. So those are like, those are the things that we just found out during the using, and during creating the templates. And I think it's like kind of like useful information anyway, no matter if you are creating the template or not. But it's kind of like a useful thing. Okay, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, I think I still have a little bit of time, actually quite a lot, I hope. Then I will not maybe show this example. It's very simple and very rarely used. There's a pretty cool formula, like built-in formula for copy-paste picture. Maybe I can use it. It's kind of nice, maybe. Copy-paste picture. So those, we have like super basic formulas in here. I will show the like very basic, the most basic possible, right? We are either just copy-paste some range or copy-paste value. And those are the two first boxes. which are normally easily working everywhere. Like it doesn't matter if you want to add some kind of additional stuff in here, some option explicit or whatever. But there is another thing. So for example, all of the paste special will work on Mac, but there is one extra function, which is picture paste select. So there's something like that. We can, if I click this, it will just copy paste this as a picture, right? We can do something like that. If I copy, I think if I just do it like, if I just select here and I go copy as picture, right? I can, whatever, I'm not sure. And I will just do it like that. It will just do something like that, copy paste as picture. I can then rename it and I can give it some different stuffs with some kind of dynamic pictures. But I can also, for example, if I don't want to make some kind of search in which cell there is some kind of picture or whatever, I just want to just copy paste directly, the Windows is giving that kind of possibility. It just does not exist in Mac. It always gives an error. The same, there are like very small, very simple functions which are kind of working, but not always. Like if you are going within a loop and you're, for example, select some shape and you want to copy paste it to a different sheet, it can, for example, like it can work so fast that it will like not select even the shape, and it can have some issues. So there are always some kind of things where it's better to just somehow know how to go around that kind of problematic usage of the functions. Okay. What else? I'm so sorry. I'm turning this off. It's okay. And there is one more thing. Exactly. This is what I wanted to show. This was said that in this Mac presentation before, that it's impossible to have a forms on Mac. It's actually possible. Maybe it can open directly. And I will just show how this form look like. This is actually made for the customer, so I wouldn't recommend creating a huge forms for the as a template. But let's say if there is a customer request, we can always do whatever. We just need to know what they actually have and check with them how it works, right? So anyway, there is like a quite huge form created, and it opened here. It looks like this, and it works. Everything is just basic stuff. It's like selecting. It's just simple VBA. And by the way, just for information, it looks like this, right? It's colorful. It looks more or less nice. It's, let's say, depends what you what's your visual approach, but let's say it's look more as clean and like you can understand what's going on in here. I just wanted to show how it works on Mac. I have made for this purpose a video on Mac. So it also works. The issue is it looks like this. It's gray, there is no colors, but everything works. All the functions and all the VBA is actually there. So I just wanted to say this because I didn't want people to think there is no way or not possible, especially that it's really common that users really want to use some forms, and it can be like a problematic to sometimes to arrange it properly. So yes, let's go further. There's one more thing, which is the refresh screen. I think it depends on the Mac version or on the Excel version and so on. There's some kind of like disappearing charts. They're really there, or buttons, but they're just not visible for the user. And it's very simple solution. You can just like scroll up or down just to like make the chart away from your vision and then go back, and it's actually coming back. But this is a different thing. However, for example, what I wanted to say, Mac and Windows, and this is very important also for the templates itself. Their resolutions are always working differently. Their shapes, buttons, charts, they look differently. So, for example, if we have some kind of chart or some kind of buttons which we really are making all our effort that they will look the same size, they will just perfectly match next to each other, it will never look like that on Mac. You can just immediately forget, it will just never look the same. One button will be smaller, one will be wider, and it mostly depends on, let's say, that we are making some kind of, we are resizing columns when we are creating, because, for example, some column needs to be wider, and then over those columns or on some kind of like between one and other column, the button is set or the chart is set, and they're always going crazy a little bit. Sometimes more, sometimes less, sometimes it's just few millimeters, sometimes it's like completely moved. So we are also trying to control that kind of stuff. So we are like, when we are making like a last testing, just to make sure that they're at least like more or less okay, that there is no some kind of, how to say, that they don't overlap some important informations, or they are not overlapping each other and so on. This is like a lot of stuff that, like, I think I said a lot of stuff about Mac already, but really it's really important part. And also it is important because, like, in general, Excel as well, when we are creating the parts. Okay.
Can we?
Can I interrupt for a moment? Sorry. Okay. Can I interrupt for a moment? I've got one question from George Skine. He asked quite a while ago, and I've been holding on to it. He's asking about the solving the problems without VBA. Roughly what percentage of problems include a VBA solution?
Actually, for us, not so many, because we are trying to, like I already said, make as clean as possible and as simple as possible code. I would say if we were trying to use, of course, any kind of like Mac related or just available like newer VBA, it would be more problematic. In general, there are some basic functions which will never work or never work properly, and it's important to just make a test. We don't have so many like complaints, so actually the basic testing works. The testing on Mac usually is just, you know, just run all of the macros few times, and if there is no any issue, usually it's just enough. If, or of course, it was working already, everything on Windows, if it was already past all of the stuff, it would be more or less okay. So I would say rarely. Like I said, sometimes, for example, like you saw this form, it was created more or less like clean, so it was nicely visible anyway, even though it was super gray. But some of the forms, when we were creating, we have like very few templates where we have forms. Sometimes also inside the forms, some of the input text or the buttons are moved a little bit, and it doesn't just look appealing. And that's why we are trying also to avoid something like that, if possible. But not so much, if I have to be honest, about the VBA issues itself. It also depends. If it's related to, I can just finish. If it's related to any kind of shapes moving around, kind of loop with the shapes, copy pasting or anything, it's better to find some different solution usually than just copy paste or some move or whatever. Of course it works, but yeah.
I have now Sadrach, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, I'm pretty sure I'm saying it wrong, had his hand up or her hand up, and now it's gone away. So I don't know whether that meant they gave up.
There. No, I still see the hand up. So if you have a question that you want to ask, feel free to unmute.
And then Tanya has asked a question, does anyone have a tip for the problem that the logo in the header is always distorted?
About the about the Mac, right? If it's about Mac, because if it's about the Windows, actually, we are usually not having such an issues. We are
no Windows, she says.
Windows.
No, not Windows.
Not Windows, Mac. Yeah, that's the biggest problem actually. The best way is, for example, like maybe I will just open our.
It is on Windows. Tanya meant no, comma Windows.
Okay.
So she meant Windows. She meant Windows. I never had that problem. I sometimes put logos on the headers.
The only thing that it comes to my mind actually is, let me just show here. And this is what we are actually doing to all of the shapes. Let me just unprotect it. When I'm going to the settings, all charts, all shapes, or all everything is always either move but don't size or don't move, don't size. It depends. Like on average, we are making move but don't size. The issue is if it's move and size. So for example, right now, if I have something in here, it can just get distorted, right? Like this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but Tanya is referring to putting an image in when you are printing, setting up the page for printing in the header of the page, right, Tanya? I think that's what you meant. When you go to print titles.
Actually, it's also, I never had any issue, to be honest, with this. So it's really hard for me to say. Also, like, depending what you have as a scaling here, right? Of course, if it's not scaling, it might be not here. But distortion, I never saw. On Mac, always. Always. On Windows, actually, not so much.
And Sadrich has the question again. So, Sadrich, you want to ask your question? Gone away again.
I think that was a mistake from me. I didn't want to click that.
Okay. So what was your question, please?
Maybe no question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, right now, yes.
I said that was a mistake from me. I didn't even know when I clicked the handle when I heard my name.
Oh, it's the raise hand you clicked. That's okay.
Okay. So actually, to be honest, I don't know. I would also like to know if there are some people who had that kind of issues and solved. Because to be honest, I never noticed any issue with the, let's say, resizing. However, I don't know if I can manage to do it right now. If I go to the display, right, and if I go with the scale and I change the scale to a different one of my monitor, of my screen, all of the shapes are changing size. That's some kind of bug of Excel. They're always changing a little bit. The same, it's happening if I make a zoom back and forward. For example, let me check. Right now, it's like that 0.8, 529, right, centimeters. And if I just make my zoom whatever, I don't know if it's gonna work right now. Yeah, you can see 5.3 it's becoming. And it's out of nowhere, you know? So I think this is some kind of like Excel bug.
Go ahead. I was going to say, even in Excel dialog windows, Power Query, for example, I work with different monitors. They don't have the same resolution and the same display
Yes.
Percentage. So
Yes.
Power Query, for example, the tabs just go on and off, and everything it's out of place sometimes.
Yeah,
so.
Unfortunately, Excel is not made for like a graphics, typically not from the beginning. So because of that, it's also always the same issue. For example, you know, like if I make this with 3, right, and I make all of them 3. So, for example, if I put some kind of shape inside in here, that it's gonna have this shape. Let me just align it so I know it's just fit to the grid, right? Yes, okay, so it's like that. Right now, if I just make the same, and I just make it 5 times, right? So normally this should say, for example, okay, I have width of 0.69, right? 0.69 times 5. Let's make it more. Let me just shrink to fit so we are okay. Okay, so actually I should have here 345, right? And it's never like that. And doesn't matter, even if this would be like much bigger, there will always be some small differences. So in case we want to make some kind of like calculation with some kind of shape, some kind of, if we are creating a template like that, where it's important, it's always a huge challenge. And like you said, also each screen resolution changing, every kind of change like that, it always just completely like causes some small or bigger distortions. With Mac, much bigger. With Windows, just different resolution, just a little bit, but yeah, it does. So okay.
We have one final question, if you don't mind. Sue Sulecki is asking, with workbooks that have many tabs, is there a way to shrink the size of the tab so that all are viewable, excuse me, without the user needing to
rename
to something across the right to see them all? And then there's a follow-up saying, aside from shortening the tab names which
yes,
isn't always an
exactly.
option.
I wish I could knew it as well. Maybe any of you knows, actually, because it would sometimes be very useful. I have
Wouldn't
no
it?
clue. I never noticed any solution for that. I also never searched, actually, because I thought it's just not existing. But if any of you know that there is a possibility to just make without the changing the name of the tab, for example, to see just partially and just ... or whatever, and that would be nice.
Tanya says right-click on the left side. Oh,
yes,
that?
It's the right-click on the arrows, the navigation arrows for the tabs. If you right-click on those, you will see a vertical list of all the sheets, and then you can navigate through there.
Yes.
There was also a new navigation option that was mentioned recently by the Excel team about a vertical navigation option, but I'm not sure in which versions those are available and how to access
I will just show what you meant. Yes. So for example, in here, yes, definitely that's a useful thing. So you don't need to actually search for it. You can just click
right click.
You can see. Yes. That's definitely a nice thing. But yeah, just to have here like a shorter names, like without changing the names, that for example, not all the name is shown. I never saw anything like that. So I'm assuming it's not possible, but I cannot be sure. If I didn't prove it, the opposite, I cannot say.
Yeah.
Impossible. Okay, so I already showed this the template, and I just wanted to show the example 6. So this is very important actually when we are like organizing some kind of input files, input sources. It's kind of important to give some kind of like idea that, for example, if the user will put something like that, we have some kind of data validation. There's an information. Okay, if you put this, it will make no sense, for example, right? Or if you put some, write some kind of character or a string, it will make no sense. So it's kind of important to give some kind of data validation. Of course, it's not like we are making data validation for everything, but sometimes, especially when it's like a numerical input or a more important data input, like date, not data, date input, this is really, it can really cause a lot of trouble if the user, because, you know, when people are downloading the files, the templates, they're downloading from all around the world with completely different settings on their systems, on their Excel files. They have different, let's say I have a semicolon. Most of the word has just comma, yes, just a comma in all of the formulas. And the way the date look like, it also changes. Even if I format it in some specific way, it will also change in a moment. Even if, for example, I think I will not be able to do it in here, but even if I set some specific date format, I will say, okay, United States, right, and something like that. Even if I later like turn off everything, I will just, let's say I will do like this. Here's my date. It looks like this. The format is correct. But then if I go to my settings of my computer, which means not me in right now, but if I go to my like language settings, right, and I will change my language and region, and I will change it here, or the user from a different part of the globe will have a different settings, this format will look differently. This is the weirdest thing, because we can set really directly. I'm saying, okay, English, United States, that kind of type, it's still changing. This is something really weird and unfortunately happens. And it's always a big, I would say.
Do you use the text function a lot to indicate the date format? Yeah,
no,
because
we are
then
not
it
using
will not
text.
work.
Never.
Yeah.
Never. Actually, completely never. If we have some templates where we are actually giving to the user option how you want to see your date in, for example, in Kanban or in some others templates. They are choosing from a drop-down list, and based on this, we are just making a string. We are making like, okay, it's gonna be, we are taking a date, and from the date, I'm saying, okay, it's gonna be, the user wanted to be like a year slash month slash day. So I'm creating a string, which is year from the date plus string like plus char of slash, right, plus and plus day of something. That's how it's solved actually by us, because otherwise even the text formula, actually it's also, I want to show it in here, but yeah, that's what I was
mentioning that,
going in here. I have some
yeah, even another thing is the Excel language, what kind of language they are using Excel under, right? Because
yes,
if I program here in English and say, show me this date in format MM and then space YYYY to month and year, and someone in Portugal, for example, I had that experience, opens the file, it will not work because year there is with an A for the word anno, which is for year. So it would have to be AAAA, but that is hard coded in the formula, so it will not work.
Unfortunately, yes, that's completely true. This actually is solved as a positive thing. This actually works properly in the Google Sheets, because you are just sharing the specific, let's say, specific language and stuff, it's not related to the system, so it can be used there. But in here, for example, like I just wanted to show, for example, we have some customer which is using some like interactive broker, and he's just downloading some kind of CSV. So what is that? This is a date. There's a date and time, right? But if I just say, okay, give me a month or year or whatever from here, month from here, it will just give me an error, right? Because it doesn't understand it's a date. And it's quite common. If the users are copy pasting some data, it can cause some trouble. So it also another thing. Sometimes, especially in some specific templates, we are just, creating that kind of stuff. This is very impossible to create just for the specific template. This is just a converter for a specific customer. And if we have another one who is saying, okay, my date looks like this, let me try it. Okay, you can make it a little bit like possible to understand with lots of formulas. But even here, for example, like I'm saying some kind of like I'm checking some, I don't know where I have, but it's mostly solved with like len and, len formula, cutting out, multiplying by 1 each of the some specific year and month and so on, because just if you cut it like len, it will still be seeing this as a string, right? So there's lots of stuff that we really need to think about, and definitely the text format is just not possible to use. I don't know what I don't remember what was the here. Yes, so for example, also like what we are doing, like if I just use in Turkish, it's gonna be like for year I will still have Y, then for month I will have A and then G, right? So in this case I'm just doing something like that, right? And for example, I can have this as a combination. Right now in here it's like that, but I can give to the user some kind of drop-down list, what kind of connector you want to use, if it's gonna be just a pause like here, or it's gonna be a slash, or just a empty space, whatever. So we are also not giving like 10,000 of the possibilities, of course, but we are trying sometimes to give. This is kind of important when we are showing some data, when we are showing some data which is connected with the string already. For example, I have for example, this task has a due date on the 1st of June 2023, right? And I want to write in one cell due date and then add the date, right? So in this case, it will just not work correctly. And I need to just change it to the string and make it in a proper format as the user actually wants. So those are like some kind of tricky parts that we need to use. By the way, also an advantage, Google Sheets has a formula which is just saying, okay, use the same format as the cell which I'm taking from. So if I connect strings, it will just connect, for example, due date, and it will connect me a string and it will connect me a date in the same format as it was. I don't need to bother with all of those formulas like I'm doing in here. So that's a really big plus for, working with dates. And another thing, this is what I wanted to show because I didn't want to take so much time in changing my system settings. I was not sure if it's not going to break anything for my sharing or anything. So a super basic sharing, like sorting, right? If I have some stuff and I want to sort it in any way, right, I can just simply sort it. But we got sometimes from the users some errors. They're saying it doesn't work. So in this case, we are also for them creating something that allows to, for example, sort the data by ranking. We are specifically saying some kind of ranking based on whatever they want to sort it. And I want to show this video actually because it's really something that I never saw before. If I'm changing, yes, I should make it a little bit shorter, this video. But yeah. Okay, so I have changed to United States, and on my computer with my settings, I'm saving, I'm reopening this, and I'm trying to sort, and nothing is working. So this is really a tricky thing. I really believe this is some kind of bug, because I don't think in United States they actually have problem with sorting, but on the other hand, maybe they do, and like I couldn't believe this, but even this way still doesn't work, you know? So there are also some kind of really small tricky things. In that case, for example, there is no need for sorting, right? But sometimes when we want, or we have some kind of option for the user that he wants to sort something by value or whatever, this is like a ranking or any kind of solution like that can be useful in that case. And the last video, because it was also really weird for me when I found it out. For example, if I open a CSV file on my settings, it will look like that. Right? It's just normal comma. Yeah, each part is just like that. So I'm just seeing it like that. Okay, I can make an import from CSV, right? This is the CSV just directly opened file. I can, of course, import it and like insert data, right? From the CSV, and I can make it properly. But in some of the settings, I think in Australia, when they are opening the CSV file, it looks like this. Directly, I'm opening the same file. It's still CSV, and it's perfectly opened looking. So there are really some kind of weird differences that you need to be aware, right, while creating a template. And it's really like, I would never even thought about something like that.
I think even the way the CSV file is created can make a difference. There's different standards for when saving the file, the CSV file, and I don't really know about them. I know there's different standards related to characters or something like that, and it makes a difference. Even with Power Query, when we are importing data from a CSV file, usually we just go through the different windows that pop up when we are entering Power Query and defining what we want to do with the file. And we just accept what Power Query gives us by default. But sometimes it's when we start getting challenges. If we tweak and change, try different options in those settings, we may get better results. So
yes, and also changing some kind of in Power Query, and also like the related kind of parts of the Excel or Power BI. When you are changing the format of each column, yes, this is useful. This is really nice to actually be able to do it. So, but the problem is in the template is you never know what they will get. Because like you just said, if it doesn't matter that the user is using the same application to download the CSV file, because for example, it can make a difference if they have different system settings, language settings, and the CSV file will look differently. So this is always a big challenge from this perspective, definitely. Okay.
Interrupt for questions again, Danuta? Sorry. We had from Tanya, and the reason I'm putting Tanya first is because it's about your very last thing. And she asked if that CSV problem isn't a problem having to do with the separator.
Actually, it is possible, but that's what I'm saying. You never can know what is the CSV file versus what the person is actually using in Excel. And it's common, really, that, for example, someone is using like interactive brokers with some American settings with a different date format, and then they are using it for some Australian services, or the Excel that is created directly for the Australian market, and they still have the problems. So there are always some kind of issues with this. Like as soon as you know what you are doing, you can always solve all of the issues. But the problem is many users don't understand that there is some kind of like, even many users doesn't understand, for example, when they see in the cell a date with some specific format, they don't even look on the formula tab just to see how their date actually look like, because they usually look differently. If I format it with some huge, like with the full name of the month or something, it will not look the same in the formula, this line, right? So that's the issue. Like as soon as you're like I'm not saying power user, but as soon as you know what you are doing more or less, and you are not afraid of some checks, you will be okay. But there's plenty of users who really, they just buy the templates because they don't know how to use properly Excel, right? That's another thing. There's plenty of users who actually are, they want our knowledge, they want our experience, because they don't want to bother. They just want to open it. They just want this to work without them to go into any details. They don't want to see, for example, any formulas because it scares them, or they just don't have time, right? It's also quite common. And they just want to have ready to use template, and they just don't want to bother. So that's the from the template creating perspective, that's the biggest issue than really possibility or not.
Okay. Sue has another question. Is there a non-complicated way to automatically clear entries in specific cells to reset a template or a form to its original state?
So I would say the best way is just create a copy, remove all of the data, save it as your clean template. So if you want to reuse it, you have just clean empty template. If we have like a VBA templates, which are with VBA, we are also most of the time providing extra button for like clear the data, especially if it's like a lot of data. So that's the easiest way actually.
Do you use the Excel file XLST extension for?
No. No, actually, no. Also, it is also the reason for that people are kind of scared from some different, it's like you will open it, and it's sometimes if you will not educate the user, he will try to reopen the same file again and again and again. They will just create new files, right? Okay, they can save it as something, then search it for something, but I was a little bit surprised at the beginning when I started to work at Someka that we are not creating something like that. But I have to say it has a really valid
reason because you will get, I can imagine people even yesterday I was talking to a client about that exactly because they needed a template to make quotes, for example, and she was saying, oh, I need to save this and don't forget I need to remember not to type in the master file. And I was telling them, in fact, and this is for you, Celeste, if you are not acquainted with this idea, you can check when you do save as, you have an extension type XLST, if I'm not mistaken, for template. What this does, it creates a file that when you double click on it, it opens a copy that is not saved anywhere until you finally save it. So it guarantees you that you will always open a clean file.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a couple of tricks about how to open the file, and because there's ways that when you open the file, it actually opens the master file instead of a copy. But the original, the general point of these files is to allow to have that template. That's why it's called a template extension file. And when you double click on it, the expected behavior should be to open a clean copy. Although I think the last time I tried this on Windows 11, it was not behaving the exact way it used to do with Windows 10. So
yes, it has sometimes really a nice usage, especially, for example, once I was creating for a customer. That's why it was also kind of easy. I immediately explained. It was some kind of like reconciliation file, you know. So they actually want to open every week new file and input fresh data because they just want to compare the Friday, Monday. That's all. And just this and this, and they just want to save this new file and as a new week summary or whatever it would be. Okay, sometimes it really makes sense to have just a fresh template, which is completely empty. You are just opening this. But in our case, mostly it's just, we are anyway suggesting to create always a copy. Of course, if you buy the template, we are also always, you know, like it's completely normal. Someone just, I don't know, lost the link or just
the file,
or forgot. He completely just lost the file and he forgot to use it because he didn't have time or she, and they're just asking. We're always resending the template, so it's not like you will not save the fresh file and there will be no way that you will not get the new one. It's always available. You can just, if the customers are asking this, so it's obviously happening. But yes, the best way is just copy if you want to have always empty file, you can either save it as a template by yourself after cleaning all of the data. That's important, after cleaning all of the data, because otherwise every time you would have to like clean again and again fresh files. So that's the point. But yeah.
Tanya has one last question I'm going to do at this break. And she's asking, does the problem with sorting also exist with dynamic tables?
What does Tanya mean? Excel tables?
There's sorting that you were saying with
that was a table. I made it on purpose, actually. I formatted it as a table, and it was still the problem. So it was not a range that I selected and put the filters and just to make the no. It was a table. That's why, because we have actually saw this issue. We couldn't figure out what was the problem because the user didn't say it's not sorting. There was just some kind of like no realistic data was coming out of his input data, and we couldn't understand because we are clicking some macro, it's just sorting, doing whatever. Also, by the way, if you use some kind of sort function in macro, if it doesn't work normally manually, also in VBA it will not work. That's another thing. It's not just like some kind of workaround. No, unfortunately, no. So yeah.
Okay, we'll let you continue.
I guess that's most of like some kind of like a very technical stuff. So I will just say some kind of important but not very complex stuff right now. So I hope I can speed up a little. So another thing is, of course, visualization, which is super important, and it's like a huge subject for any kind of right. We can spend too much time on that. This is super important to let's say your charts are correct to the correct data, right? That you're not using some kind of like pie chart for data which has, I don't know, the table of 50 different names with some completely different numbers and so on. Those are all important things. It's also important to just check for example, you want to use the pivot chart anyway for some data. So make it, for example, top 5, right? Or something like that. You can always somehow make it like clear. If we are creating the template, we are also, this is super important to add the like really realistic dummy data, because that's really important. This also is what I was saying at the beginning. When the user opens the file, he wants to understand it. And the easiest way is by understanding headers and the dummy data, how it's filled actually, right? Because later on, when I delete my data, sometimes I'm getting lost. Like, okay, so what am I supposed to put in here? How it's supposed to look like, right? If I'm not an expert, especially in some kind of financial stuff, it can be financial templates. It can be sometimes tricky if you don't see the example first. The colors, actually, it's also very important, and it's important to make it visible, because first of all, visible, like readable, and second of all, it's nice to go with some kind of, we are following lots of some kind of websites which are just showing different like color palettes, which can be like pleasing to eye, and they are not giving some kind of this like a rainbow, right? A rainbow look like file. So you are not just bombarded by lots of information. For example, you want to see like some specific values, some kind of like accents and stuff like that. So those are kind of like important things. I have a very simple stuff. This is not a template actually, but I just wanted to show. By the way, also, for example, fonts. We should not just think about creating some kind of templates where we are using completely many different fonts or like some new fonts, because later on different Windows on Mac, the font might not exist. So the easiest way is just to stay with like a basic ones. That's, I would say, a nice thing. For example, like I said, it's nice to have some kind of max value, right? So if I put in here 50 right now, this will be my 50. This will show, right, as some kind of maximum. And this is just made with like a, how it's, so sorry. This is just additional series, right, for the max, which has no values in there. And it's just, I can see only this one over the other one. So those are some kind of like simple tricks, but can be like really nice to for the visualization. But like I said, also maybe I want to say one more thing. For example, imagine if I have, let's make this, I don't know how to make it so it's really fast as a, let me just make, just so I put a lot of data, right? Okay, in here it's still not, but at least it's somehow readable, right? I at least can read this. But if I choose this chart to be a column, right? And I have lots of data like that, not always it will be really nicely readable. Maybe this was also not the best idea to show, but what I'm saying, like, for example, if we have some kind of different length of the names, right? Those are really important things to actually consider, see how the dummy data can look like, how it can be actually used later on. Okay. Also, we should make sure that, for example, if there's no data, it still should look like professional. We shouldn't see some kind of like pop-up errors or some kind of warnings like that there is no data, beware, something is wrong, and so on. We are trying to use the if errors if we can, or some kind of like check what can be the solutions or what can be like how to avoid some issues. So those are kind of important for like professional look of the template itself. Like I said, and I showed at the beginning that the template itself we are using. So it's nice to have some form, some kind of standard that we are repeating. So the user, when he's opening another template, he kind of has the idea how our templates look like, right? They will know that, for example, if they buy the templates from a different company, right? they have completely different style, right? They can have a different style of the flow, different, let's say the menu or the navigation can look differently, right? So this is kind of important to make also the customer, let's say, familiar. And if they imagine, for example, we have like a bundle package, which contains 5 different templates, which is related to some subject. It's nice to have them looking similar, right? At least in some level. Okay, this is another thing. When we are setting some colors, right? Color palettes, we are defining. This is nice to have in the advanced chart, advanced properties of the chart to uncheck those properties. The reason is if I don't have them unchecked and I delete all my data, I will save the file and I will open new one. Or if I liked the way it was already like organized, the color, the visually how it was organized. If I reopen the same file but without any data and start to input the data, it will just go and use the basic, like the first standard option for the charts. So I'm so sorry, not this one. I just wanted to show the same thing. So for example, in here, it will just go back directly to here. And it will just not even be like, you know, it will just go back. There's no, like, we are spending a lot of time on making the visually appealing template. So if we like it and we want make sure to the user is gonna stay this way, we are just unchecking this stuff. Of course, there is very important spell check, because you can always, even if you are like native, it's easy to make some mistakes, that kind of stuff. We are, of course, setting print areas. We are setting dynamic print areas, especially if we have like a big input data tables, which has like thousands of rows. We are making the dynamic print area. So the more user input the data, the print area will be like increased, right? Also a nice thing to do, of course, name all of the tables, name of the pivot tables, name ranges, to make them like understandable. So if the user sees some name range or some kind of table, he knows, okay, this is where I'm supposed to search for it, not a table number 1, right? Those are basic stuffs. About don't move, don't size, or I already have said before. Yes, this is what I wanted actually to show. This is what we are actually doing in our, like, when we have like a new developer, he's starting to deal with, we have some kind of tasks to do, and the task is not important, but it's the easiest way to actually show in here on this example what we are always trying to make sure that it's easy to like that it will not get broken. So for example, I have some data input and I have some sales data, right? And it's just combined in some pivot tables. I have some whatever. It's not even very much important. And right now, if I go in here and I will, for example, delete this. Let me just unprotect it. As a user, because users likes to, for example, insert some data. They usually, it's quite common. So if I just delete or insert something, right? And if I refresh the data, I think I didn't allow for this. Okay, is it again formulas? I was testing it, but I guess this is not ready yet file. Or maybe if I just do, let me just unprotect it, it's gonna be easier. I have some calculation. This is just still in the process, but let me just try to It's not going to take so much time. I'm almost done, so don't worry.
Don't worry, yeah, we are good.
I hope it will work. Yes, so in general, like I have my calculation sheet. In general, if I like delete here the data or insert anything, right? Or completely just delete like that, I want this to still be valid. So I don't want to see some stuffs that are not valid. And it doesn't matter, for example, if they're existing in here as sales, because this is just invalid right now, right? I could not sell it because I don't have this in my product database. So those are some kind of checks. And for example, which was not done before, but there are some kind of important things. Like, for example, if the user will delete everything, right? I remember it was not ready properly, let's say, and I'm starting from nothing. So before I will refresh, I have here something like yes, because I'm checking if it's an active or not. Otherwise, I would see here some kind of not important stuffs. Right now, if I refresh it, it will go wrong. And this is some kind of like a basic stuff that like it cannot be solved like that. You need to make some additional formula in here. So there will be, even if there is no data at all, at least one yes you will have. So your, for example, active filtering will not go crazy. Of course, you can do it as well. For example, in the VBA, you can just set this filter on active while refreshing the data. But yes, those are some kind of stuff that are important, and that kind of things. Like if the user decide to, for example, insert some. Let me just go in here. For example, I have product description. I want to add some extra information, which will not be visible anywhere. But as a user, I just want to have extra column, right? So, and with some of my data. So I don't want this to break my calculation later on, right? I still want this calculation to be from the correct places. So those are kind of like important steps where we actually need to be very careful about. This is one thing that I guess many users right now know already, but when I saw it first time, I was really a little bit surprised. Right now, new Excel, if you don't force the array formula, it's kind of understanding, right? You don't need to even like control shift enter, right? Yeah, you don't need to do it, control shift enter. In the new Excel, it just understands. But if you leave it just like that, your compatibility issue will be wrong because the older versions will not understand it, right? So this is the one part, and this is okay. You can just check compatibility issue and it will be fine. But if you have some super basic stuff, maybe it will be also visible in here, but I'm not sure. No, I cannot show it right now. If you have basic like index formula and let's say you have a just column and you're not saying 1 and 1, like first row, first column, you have, for example, not 1, you have just, let's say, cell number 2, because in the cell number 2 you have number 1, right? So index from the column, and instead of 1, I will put cell number something. So the new Excel can understand it as an array, which is super weird, but it gives issues. It gives some kind of indication that you should give me information. Otherwise, it will be without really the array formula, but it will give some error in the previous Excel because it might cause some kind of issues. Anyway, because of that, in front of the formula, when we know, and it gives some kind of possibility, this is how we are just checking compatibility. It just selects the formula where it's either should be array formula or non-array formula, and in front of the just after the equal sign, I'm just adding at, and it just adding it according where it's actually like needs it. So, you know, it's very simple thing, but super important for the compatibility stuff. I hope it was more or less clear because I didn't show any example, but it's really a simple thing, just to know what is at, because sometimes you can just see it and you might not know where it comes from, why I see it, especially for the, I think, yeah, the newer users, like new Excel users, they can see something like that. Because older Excel, if there is no, it will just cause some kind of error in the, or some kind of value error or some kind of other error. Okay, and actually my last thing, that's just like a summary. After it's like everything is more or less done by the user, which is super important, like all of the previous steps. What we are doing, of course, we have like a Q&A step. We are doing lots of the testings that we are just going. We have a full list of stuff that needs to be checked. It's like each of the developer, before it gives to even to the Q&A, he's supposed to, or she's supposed to just check one by one, some kind of removing data, checking if the format is the same. Sometimes, for example, we have like a first 3 cells is a nicely formatted as date, but next just a general. So that kind of simple stuffs are, we have like a full list of checks, and this is what we are going. Of course, some kind of monkey test, which means like if I can just destroy it super easily by just not knowing how to use it, right? Is it gonna give me some error, or if it's just will behave like properly, let's say, right? And another thing, actually, what we have, and the last one, we have some kind of our own internal file, which is doing some kind of test. So each file is checking. I am putting, for example, I have some links, what we are supposed to input, some kind of links in the buttons and so on and so on. What is the password and so on. We are also testing in a other language, in the Turkish as well. So I'm also selecting language, and then I'm choosing like examples. So sorry, where's examples? And this is just, I wanted to show the one that our form, because normally, of course, the password will be different, the stuff will be different, the template name and so on will be different, but just as a testing for the file itself. So it just goes with standard macro, it just checks the template one by one, all of the sheets. It gives me some kind of information, for example, that I have some links, but they're within the same sheet. Maybe it's important to check it for the user. I'm saying, okay, for example, the sheet tab is not hidden and so on. We have some kind of information. Also, we have, and the last, this is really important, especially it's easy. Sometimes, I don't know, the developer, someone will just forget and just copy paste something from a different template, and it can cause some kind of like refers to, and there's like C slash something, just direct link instead of inside the template, the one that we are creating. It has some kind of like a complete, like to my own computer file, different file path, right? So those are some kind of basic checks, and it's just we are just checking with everything. We have some kind of setups. It also checks, for example, if someone didn't make some updates based on like how it should look like or not. So yeah. Can I close it now, or it's completely blocked me? Oh, thank God it was just the last one where it blocked me.
That's a long checklist.
Okay. Thank you. That's actually all I had. I hope it was informative and I could answer most of the questions you had. if there are some other one.
Yeah, I do have 2 or 3 questions for you, if you don't mind. How long does it take on average to get the first version of a template ready for to sell?
That's actually a tricky question. It all depends how complex it is, how much effort we are doing. If we are making like lots of research on the market, if we have some kind of really simple templates. Right now we are publishing like once a day, almost 1 template or 2 templates even. But of course we have many developers, so it's also a different thing. But right now, like if we are creating very simple, super simple template, like 1 sheet with some basic inputs, not so much formulas and so on, it takes like 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. But when we have like a template, which was like a Kanban template, which really needs a lot of checks, a lot of testing, thinking, like considering what is useful, what is not useful to input there, if it's worth to make some kind of much more dynamicity in what we are actually seeing in the so for example those cards of the Kanban, or how the flow works. It can take much more. For example, I think the maximum time that we took was like 100 hours to create a template.
Not too bad.
Yes.
And then what happens if you receive feedback and you decide to make improvements to it? Will the customers who bought the first version, will they have access to the improved versions after that if they want?
Yes, actually, if we are making, first of all of the bug fixes are like, if the customer finds a bug because we couldn't find it, it's like immediately we are fixing it immediately. It's republished immediately. So that's the first thing. If we are making any of the improvements, always the customers who bought the templates, they are always getting the email with the information. The new version is available. You can just download it. Use the link you have and just download it. So this is always available. And of course, if there's like any bug or anything, there's like no even way. But there's another thing. We have sometimes some templates which were created, they're set up, and then we have some kind of customers who say, okay, this is all cool, but we want this and this and that. So either we are making like a custom file, and this is completely separate, like it's cost. Not a template anymore, it's a cost, it's just for a specific customer. So this is one thing, but sometimes they're saying, okay, they're sending email, it's really cool, it would be nice if it had something like that, because it's actually really important in our case, like in case of this template itself, not just for our company. And we are getting like 2-3 times from different customers that kind of information. Then we are also collecting that kind of feedbacks, and we are trying to improve the template. So it's not just bug fixes. We are also taking into account all of the feedbacks from the customers, and we are making the updates. Sometimes like immediately we can see, okay, something is completely, we didn't think it properly. Like, okay, it works logically, mathematically it works, but it's not the way it's used right in here, and someone didn't catch it properly when making the research. So of course this is also some kind of like very important feedback from our customers. And yeah, this is
How do you decide where to stop? Because one of the things that have always prevented me from doing that type of work, creating templates and selling them, is because I always overthink it. So I'm starting to think,
that's really hard.
This is good for this situation, but then the other company needs something else, or needs something a little bit different, or maybe there are extra scenarios. And then I always quit after 5 minutes.
That's really, really hard. And actually, it's that's why we have like really this. I was saying this first stage. It's really important to actually make the market research, see how people are searching, using it, see some comments even on people's, like for example, YouTube, some videos and so on, they are saying and so on. Sometimes even on our YouTube product, they are like giving some feedbacks that, okay, this would, or whatever. But yes, what limits us, and it's actually a nice limit, I would say, sometimes nice, sometimes not nice, is the time we have. We are setting some limit. Okay, don't spend more than this time on this template because it's not going to be worth it.
Profitable,
And then
yeah.
we are just publishing, for example, okay, we have some standards. It will still be correctly working, but like you said, we are trying sometimes not overthink, not add 10,000 different options, because you can always add another option, another thing, another idea, another different way of using the template. We are just, for example, saying, okay, let's publish it and see what the customers will say. This is also important. Unfortunately, it's also the big advantage of, for example, when you have a lot of customers and 1 or 2, 3 products, it's easier to collect lots of feedbacks, right? When we have a lot of templates and we are just, you know, just few customers for each template, or maybe not few, but let's say it's not like, you know, I don't know, like some kind of big application, let's say Excel event will come up and there is some bug. Immediately they will just be bombarded, right, with the information, feedback information. We are not. So that's a drawback, you know, like sometimes it would be nice to have some kind of immediate feedback. But I would say quite common we are getting, like, for bugs, thankfully not so much. Thank God we are our Q&A test part is quite like nicely and
thorough.
Yes. So that's a nice advantage right now. But yeah, but for example, some kind of advices, some kind of ideas, yes, that's happening. Not for all of the templates also. Or for example, sometimes users are like, our template can be like, it gives you some kind of inputs for settings, right? You can input your, I don't know, importance. You can put high, medium, low, or you can put importance 1 to 3, whatever you want, right? 4, 5. And even for this, sometimes we are getting some kind of like requests from the customers, like, could you please change this for me because I need this like that. And then we are also explaining, okay, this is you can fully like do it by yourself. In that kind of simple stuff, we are also helping. That's not a like big issue, but yes, like sometimes we are trying to make it, you know, sometimes that's why I'm saying this, because sometimes it makes no sense to make it too much complex and too many different options, because the more options, the more difficult to understand and difficult to modify by the user, you know.
And more bugs can happen, and more claims, complaints can happen as well. Exactly. Would you like to just show the website? I think is there any other questions, Rania? Okay. I don't think so. If you find something, let us know. And if you want to just show the website, and so that people have an idea of what the kind of templates you offer, it would be great.
I don't know. Okay.
I put a link in the chat to the website.
Thank you.
Okay. That's how it looks like. You can find here all of the Excel templates we have, actually, also, and the Google Sheets we have, because for many of them we have like a Google Sheet version. So for example, if I click any of the template in here, I can also see, for example, I think I limit all my internet for today, or I guess Someka something is wrong. Anyway, if the template has the version of the Excel and Google Sheet, you will see here both tab sheets. So I don't know if I go and check, for example, Kanban. I'm not sure if we have Kanban. Let's see, Kanban. Yes, we have. So for example, if I click any of them, I can see here Google Sheet and the Microsoft. We are trying to make them work the same way. For example, Google Sheet has the advantage, also another one. I'm so sorry. That the pivot tables, pivot charts, or whatever, they are automatically updating. You don't need to refresh the data. Yes, exactly. The data, if you are just changing, they automatically change by themselves. So that's kind of like a advantage. Also, like I was saying, if any kind of like a custom service you are also offering, it also depends on what are the needs. Of course, those are some kind of like a basic stuff. Sometimes customers are writing to us because they want like just a cut just for themselves the proper quotation. So it's also it's changing from time to time, but yeah, that's how it looks.
Okay, very good.
Here, yes.
Yeah, I learned a few things. Thank you so much for being so thorough, so dedicated to explain, to share as much as possible. It is very interesting. The session was very interesting because of the perspective from where you are coming, not as much as an Excel developer to attend one customer or working at a company with certain needs. That perspective of wanting to attend as many different scenarios as possible does bring a lot of different challenges and ways to approach them. So thank you, Danuta, so much for coming.
Thanks so much. It was
really
a great
pleasure. Yeah, great pleasure to have you here. If there's any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, we will be shutting down shortly because this ended up being a very long session, but very informative. Hopefully, it will be useful for people to, especially Excel consultants. Even if we are I was thinking, even if we are developing for one customer only, having in mind all the things that you shared will prevent us from going through a lot of problems when the customer uses Mac or when the customer uses a different version. Definitely, it's very useful to have all these in mind.
Yes.
I think that's it for questions, but we had an awful lot of people saying that it was a good session. Thank you. Great presentation. Very informative. So lots of good feedback there.
Thank you you so much. That was really great too.
Yes. So I think that's it for questions.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording and thank you for attending and we'll see you soon. Here, stop recording.